So far we discussed several rule-based scheduling like shortest processing time SPT rule or earliest due date rule EDD rule, and CR rule and Johnson's rule. And these are very good for scheduling in job shop oriented production situations. But they have some limitations too. The scheduling often is very dynamic because new jobs are coming in all the time. And machines sometimes break down and there are changes in shifts, changes in labor availability. So scheduling is a very dynamic environment and the rules need to be revised to adjust to these changes as and when problems arise. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the rules are about what jobs are available at a given workstation and how much resources are needed at that given workstation. It doesn't look further downstream or upstream to see when the jobs are coming in and what resources are needed in other work centers. So it doesn't take into account all of those interrelationships among workstations. So to that extent, it could be a limitation. And the rules do not look beyond the due date. The rules look at due dates as though all due dates are equal. But that need not be the case. So if you, for example, your text discusses this, so you have two different orders and they both have the same due date. And if there is a capacity crunch, you don't have enough capacity to do both the jobs and complete them both at the same due date. So which one of these two should get priority? If you look at the rules will arbitrarily choose one of the two. But then if you look deeper into the production requirements, one job may be from dealers who stock this order for, maybe this order is for them to have additional stock. Whereas the other job with the same due date could be from a customer who requires these parts to run their schedule, run their assembly line. So if you don't meet the schedule, don't meet the due date, their assembly line may be shut down. So this one is more serious. This due date is more serious. So even though they both have the same due date, one due date, the first one is more flexible and the second one is not. So these kinds of information should be taken into account. If you strictly go by the rules do not distinguish between these additional layers of information. So you have to look beyond the due dates. That's what is meant by not looking beyond the due dates or looking beyond the due dates. One of the ways to mitigate these rule-based approach is to have what is called finite capacity scheduling. Finite capacity scheduling is a computer system, if you will, that looks at all the different capacities available in the production shop floor, and it looks at what affects the job, the sequence in which the jobs are done in one workstation, what effect that will have in the capacity requirements in other workstations. So it is a comprehensive computerized system that you can try different combinations of scheduling or what if type of analysis, and you will have some expert systems and simulations that you can do in real time to make, to decide which job should be taken up first instead of simply adhering to a rule, a EDD rule or a SPT rule. You look at the entirety of the shop floor, and this is possible because of the power of the computers that we have these days. So finite capacity scheduling is a computer system that allows for you to experiment, do what if analysis to determine the best possible schedule. Here are a couple of examples are given here. So this is kind of a schema for interactive finite scheduling, and here is a screen from a finite capacity scheduling software where you can bring down and drop one job here or one job there and see what effect it will have in the entire shop floor. Now scheduling in services, there are some important differences. In manufacturing, the scheduling is mainly for machines. What machine, what job should be assigned. Whereas in services, scheduling is more towards scheduling staff. You need to make sure that your service operations are staffed adequately. The inventories are used in manufacturing quite a lot. You look at what is the work in process inventory to determine what kind of schedule you need to use, whereas inventories is not an issue in service. Now in manufacturing, scheduling is machine intensive, and the demand generally tends to be smooth because from MRP computations you have jobs coming in, and you can control the inflow of jobs to make sure that there is a steady flow of jobs, whereas that's not so in service because customers can come in at their own preferred times, so the demand may go up and down depending upon the seasonality effect of day of the week or hour of the day effects. Now there are, in manufacturing, scheduling is constrained by union contracts, whereas in service there may be some legal requirements, like you have to give a certain amount of break time and lunch time and so on. So they need to be taken into account while making schedule in service environment. When it comes to scheduling in a manufacturing environment, the social and behavioral issues of customers, customer contact, is almost non-existent because in manufacturing environment, customers are not present during the production situation. When the product gets produced, they are not present there. Whereas in service industry, in as much as customers are present, or oftentimes the service is provided to the customer in their presence, so customer relations and social and behavior issues become extremely important. So these issues must be taken into account when you do scheduling for service. So there are many scheduling environments in services that you can think of. Well, how hospitals do complex scheduling in terms of patients coming in and going out, and banks where you have customer teller operation, they have to be cross-trained to do many different operations or services that we provide to bank account holders. And retail stores should be the main issue here is staffing, to make sure that the work schedule meets certain requirements, and both the legal and your customer demands, some time, the peak demand and then the low demand times. Airlines, they have to meet FAA requirements in terms of off time for crew, how many hours they can fly and how many hours they have to rest, and so on. And 24/7 operations like police department and emergency hotlines. So we'll have to be staffed 24/7, and you have to have flexible worker schedules to be able to do a revolving schedule that meets all the legal requirements, the personal requirements, and the staffing requirements.